It started with something so small, a drip. Just a soft, steady drip echoing through the floorboards late one night. I thought it was nothing. Just the old pipes acting up again. But that sound, that innocent little sound, was the first knock from hell itself. My name's May Parker, 52 years old, mother of 2, and the kind of woman who still believes in Sunday dinners and saying grace before a meal. I worked double shifts most of my life just to give my children everything I never had. So when I tell you what I found, what I heard that day, you'll understand why I'll never be the same again. If you're listening to this, please don't go anywhere. Like, subscribe, and share, because what I'm about to tell you, it'll make you look at family in a whole different way. That morning, the house felt off. It wasn't just quiet, it was unnatural. The kind of silence that feels like someone's watching you from behind the walls. The air was thick, heavy, almost sour. I noticed the leak when I went to put the laundry in. A wet spot spreading across the basement ceiling, right under my living room. Lord have mercy, I whispered. Please don't let it be a busted pipe again. I called the plumber, old Mr. Jenkins, been fixing this house since before my kids were born. He said he'd swing by around noon. I remember looking out the kitchen window while I waited. My son Caleb, 27, was sitting in his car outside, staring at his phone. He didn't wave back when I smiled. Just drove off. My daughter Alyssa, younger by 4 years, hadn't been home in weeks. Said she was staying with friends. I didn't think much of it then. But now. I wish I had. Mr. Jenkins showed up with his usual smile. Morning, Miss Parker. You say it's leaking again? Sure is, I sighed, leading him downstairs. Right above the washer. You might need to check the pipe behind the wall. He chuckled, setting his toolbox down. Don't worry, I'll have you fixed up before lunch. The basement was cold, colder than it should have been for May. There was a damp smell too, not mildew, something else. Something metallic. Mr. Jenkins climbed his ladder and started poking around. A few minutes passed before I heard him pause. Then, real quiet, he said, Miss Parker. You mind coming over here a second? Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. When I walked closer, I saw him holding his flashlight toward a gap behind one of the wall panels. This ain't no pipe leak, he muttered. Looks like somebody tried to patch up this wall from the inside. What do you mean? I asked, confused. He pried the wood back gently, and the smell hit us first. Rot. Rust. And something else that froze my blood in my veins. Behind the panel, wrapped in black plastic, was a large, square-shaped object. Too neat to be random junk. Too heavy to be harmless. Good Lord, I whispered, covering my mouth. What is that? Mr. Jenkins shook his head. You might want to call the police. I don't touch nothing that's sealed like that. I stood there trembling. That's when I noticed something else. Small fingerprints on the dusty concrete floor. Children's fingerprints. And a familiar keychain lying beside them, a silver one shaped like a heart. Alyssa's. My hands went cold. No, 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 no. Mr. Jenkins took a step back. Miss Parker, you okay? But I couldn't speak. My heart was pounding in my throat. That plastic wrapping looked like it had been opened before, taped and retaped, and whoever did it often. I reached down with shaking hands and tore a piece of the plastic. Inside was a box. A metal safe, rusted around the edges. Mr. Jenkins whistled low. Well, I'll be damned. I looked at him, half terrified, half curious. Can you open it? He hesitated. Ain't my business, Miss Parker. But if you want me to. Do it, I whispered. He knelt, working the latch loose. It popped open with a metallic click that echoed through the room like thunder. When the lid lifted, I saw photos. Stacks of them. Old family pictures, torn and scribbled over. My face blacked out with marker. Words scrawled in red ink, liar, hypocrite, thief. I stumbled back, nearly losing my balance. What is this? Mr. Jenkins looked just as shaken. Miss Parker. I think you need to talk to your kids. By the time he left, I was pacing the kitchen floor, my whole body trembling. My mind was spinning in 1,000 directions. What would drive my children to do something like that? Why hide a box full of hate beneath my own home? Then I saw it. A text from Caleb. Don't go in the basement. Sent 3 minutes ago. I froze. How did he know? I peeked out the window again. His car was parked across the street now. Engine off. Just sitting there, watching. I grabbed my phone, hit call. Straight to voicemail. Then Alyssa's. Same thing. That's when I felt it, that same cold presence behind me. The same silence that started this morning. My children were hiding something from me, and the plumber had just cracked it open. I didn't sleep that night. Every time the house creaked, I thought it was them coming back. Every time the wind howled, I thought I heard whispering in the vents. Whatever was buried down there, whatever they buried, it wasn't just secrets. It was hate. Real, festering hate aimed right at me. And I was going to find out why. Because if my children thought they could destroy me from within my own home, they had no idea who they were dealing with. I must have read that text 20 times that night. Don't go in the basement. Just 5 little words, but they kept replaying in my head like a curse. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Caleb's face, stone cold, watching from that car across the street. Why didn't he come inside? Why didn't he say anything? And what in God's name was he protecting down there? By morning, I hadn't slept a wink. My eyes were swollen, my hands still shaking from the night before. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago, staring at my phone, waiting for some kind of explanation. Nothing. No calls. No messages. Just silence. But one thing I've learned in 52 years of motherhood, silence is its own confession. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to Caleb's apartment. The drive took 20 minutes, but my mind made it feel like hours. Every red light, every stop sign, I kept wondering, what if it wasn't just a box of photos? What if it was something worse? I remembered the look on Alyssa's face the last time she came home, the tension, the edge in her voice. She had said, "You don't get to act innocent, Mom." And then she'd stormed out. I'd written it off as young anger, but now I wasn't so sure. When I pulled into the parking lot of Caleb's building, his car wasn't there. But his lights were on. I climbed the stairs, heart pounding against my ribs. Knocked once. Twice. Nothing. Then I turned the handle, unlocked. The smell hit me first. Cigarettes. Something sour underneath it, sweat, maybe. Inside, the apartment was a mess. Clothes everywhere. Dishes stacked in the sink. Takeout boxes on the counter. And then I saw it. My face. Pinned to a corkboard above his desk. My picture, the same one from the church picnic years ago, only this one had words scribbled across it in thick black ink. She deserved it. I couldn't breathe. My knees went weak, and I had to grip the edge of the counter to steady myself. What did I deserve? What had I done to make my own son hate me this much? I started looking around, desperate for answers. That's when I found his laptop, still open, screen glowing. The first thing on it was an email thread. My heart stopped when I saw the sender, Alyssa. The subject line read, "Mom doesn't suspect a thing." My hands trembled as I scrolled. Their words spilled across the screen like poison. "Alyssa, once we get the rest of it, we can finish the wall. Caleb, don't tell her anything. I'll handle the basement. Alyssa, she's been lying our whole lives. I want her to feel it. Caleb, she will. Just make sure nobody finds out what's down there." I gasped so loud I scared myself. What's down there? That's when my phone buzzed again. A new message. But not from Caleb or Alyssa. It was from an unknown number. "You weren't supposed to see that." I froze. The air left my lungs. I typed back fast, "Who is this?" No reply. Then another message came in. "You shouldn't have opened the box." My throat tightened. I looked around the apartment, every hair on my neck standing on end. Was someone here? I bolted for the door, my hands shaking so bad I dropped my keys twice before I could lock the car. My reflection in the rearview mirror looked like a ghost. I drove home like a maniac, praying I'd imagined it all. But when I pulled up to my house, I saw something that made my stomach drop. The basement window, the one I swore I'd sealed the night before, was wide open. I ran inside, yelling, "Caleb! Alyssa! You better not be here." But the house was empty. The silence hit me again, heavy, suffocating. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen counter and crept toward the basement door. Each step down those stairs felt like walking into a grave. When I reached the bottom, I saw muddy footprints. Fresh ones. Leading straight to the wall where the safe had been. But the safe was gone. My breath caught in my chest. I turned around, nothing. Just darkness pressing against me. And then I heard it. Footsteps above. Slow, steady, deliberate. I called out, "Who's up there?" No answer. I ran back upstairs, heart hammering, but by the time I reached the kitchen, the front door was open. A breeze carried through the curtains. Whoever had been there was gone. That night, I couldn't sit still. I kept replaying everything, the photos, the texts, the emails. Something was wrong with my kids. Something deep. And it wasn't just anger or hate. It was vengeance. I found myself whispering into the dark, "What did I do to you?" And then it hit me, the box of old papers in the attic. Documents, adoption forms, hospital records, things I'd kept locked away since they were children. Things I swore I'd never let them find. I ran upstairs and pulled the box out. Dust flew everywhere as I tore through it. There it was, a thin yellow envelope marked "Confidential, St. Mary's Hospital." Inside were 2 birth certificates. Both had my last name, but only one had my blood. Alyssa. Caleb wasn't mine. My head spun. I dropped the papers and stumbled back. No, that's not possible. But it was. I remembered now, the storm that night. The screaming in the hallway. The nurse's voice telling me the other baby hadn't made it. And the doctor who whispered that a switch had been made to spare a broken mother's heart. I thought I'd buried that secret forever. But somehow, they found out. And now they hated me for it. Hours passed. The sky outside turned from black to gray. My phone buzzed again, another message from that same unknown number. "You took what wasn't yours. Now we're taking it back." Then another one followed, seconds later. "Check the basement." I didn't want to. God knows I didn't. But something in me, maybe that stubborn mother instinct, wouldn't let me walk away. So I grabbed my flashlight, tightened my robe, and went down. Every step groaned under my weight. The smell was worse now, sharp and metallic again. The wall panel that Mr. Jenkins had opened was missing entirely. And in its place, something new. Fresh cement. Still wet. There was a message scratched into it with a nail. "This is where the truth lives." I stood there shaking, the flashlight trembling in my hands. I didn't know what they'd buried this time, but I knew one thing for sure. My children were no longer mine. And if they wanted war, I was done being the victim. Because sometimes the only way to survive your own blood is to make them bleed first. Ever since that night with the box, the photos, the emails, I couldn't shake the feeling that something in my own home was waiting to strike me. Every creak, every whisper of wind through the curtains, made my stomach twist into knots. And the basement, oh, the basement. That door had become a symbol of fear. A barrier that wasn't just wood and metal, but secrecy, betrayal, and lies. I remembered when I first noticed it, that door always locked. Every day, no matter what, it was locked. And Caleb and Alyssa, they refused to give me the key. I tried reason. "Kids, I just want to check the pipes. Can you let me in?" Caleb's voice would grow sharp. "Mama, you don't need to be down there." Alyssa would smile this creepy little smile, tilting her head. "Some doors are better left closed, Mama." I laughed at first. Nervously. Thinking they were just teasing me. But the unease never left. It got worse. I started hearing noises, faint, dragging sounds at odd hours. At first, I thought it was rodents. Then one night, I swore I heard voices. Whispering. And dirt, oh God, the dirt. Muddy footprints climbing the basement stairs like someone had been sneaking in and out, hiding something. I tried to ignore it. Tell myself I was imagining things. A paranoid mother, right? But deep down, a tiny, icy voice whispered, "No, you're not imagining it." One Saturday morning, I decided to confront them. I marched down the hall to Caleb's room. "Caleb," I said firmly, "I need that basement key." He froze, then laughed. "Mama, you really don't need to go down there. Just trust me." "No," I said. "I don't trust you anymore. You've been hiding something, I know it." His eyes flicked to the floor. Mouth tightened. "You're being crazy." I could feel the tension in the air. It wasn't just defensiveness, it was fear. Their fear. Later that day, I tried Alyssa. "Sweetie," I called as I opened her door, "we need to talk about the basement." Her chair scraped back. She turned to face me with that eerie, knowing grin. "Mama, some doors are better left closed." I stared at her. She looked like my little girl, but she wasn't. Not really. The softness I once knew in her eyes was gone, replaced with calculation, cold intelligence I didn't understand. I swallowed hard, feeling something inside me snap. My children weren't my babies anymore. They were strangers. And strangers can hide terrible things. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I tiptoed down the hall, listening. Footsteps upstairs, just mine, or there's two. The house felt alive, but not in the way it used to. It was alive with secrets. Secrets I had a right to uncover. I went to the basement door, pressed my hand against it. Cold. Solid. Unyielding. "Open up," I whispered to the empty room. "I know you're down there. I know you've been hiding something. You're not safe from me anymore." The silence was deafening. And then I heard it, a soft, deliberate click. My heart skipped. Footsteps on the stairs. Caleb. Or Alyssa. Both. I didn't move. I held my breath. A shadow appeared in the doorway. Caleb. He had that same frozen stare, jaw tight. "Mama. I told you, don't." "Don't what?" I shot back. "Don't see what? Don't find out what you've been hiding from me for years. I raised you. I trusted you." His face twisted, anger flashing. "You wouldn't understand. You couldn't understand." I stepped closer. "Try me." Alyssa emerged from the shadows behind him, folding her arms. Some doors should never be opened. I felt it then, the full weight of their betrayal. They weren't afraid. They were warning me. And I didn't know which scared me more, that they might be hiding something, or that they were already planning to hurt me. I started watching them. Every move. Every whisper. I noticed subtle changes. Texts they deleted too fast. Phones that never left their pockets. Small injuries that they'd hide, quick excuses. I fell, I stubbed my toe, but their eyes always darted toward the basement. I tried to involve friends, neighbors, anyone. But who believes a mother whose children are the problem? I realized then, I was alone in this. Completely. And yet, the basement called to me. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was a need. I had to know what they had been hiding. And for the first time, I wasn't scared. Not really. Not yet. Days passed, and the tension only grew. One night, I heard laughter downstairs. Low, hushed. I crept to the top of the stairs. They were talking. I couldn't make out the words, but their tone, playful. Casual. As if they were planning something, like they didn't care I was their mother at all. I felt rage rise inside me. I thought of all the years I'd sacrificed. My broken nights. My endless work to give them everything. And now, they were hiding something I couldn't even imagine, something vile, and laughing at me behind my back. I whispered to the dark, "No. Not this time. You think I'm blind, huh? You think I'm weak. You're about to learn exactly who you're messing with." And that's when the nightmare started to feel real. Every night after that, I could hear them moving down there. Objects dragged, whispers, laughter, sometimes just footsteps that stopped the second I entered the hallway. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to confront it. I had to know what was behind that door. Because whatever it was, it had taken everything I thought I knew about my children and shattered it. And I swore, in that moment, I would not rest until I found the truth. The basement wasn't just a room anymore. It was a trap. And I was ready to walk into it. I never thought a plumber could make me feel like my whole world was about to collapse. But that day, when Harold, my old, steady, calm plumber, came back into the basement, I knew something was terribly, irrevocably wrong. He had been quiet the whole ride over, humming softly under his breath. I had tried to make small talk, the weather, the kids, life in general, but his eyes were distant. Distracted. Uneasy. When we stepped down the basement stairs, the smell hit me immediately. It was stronger than before. Metallic, damp, something foul I couldn't name. My stomach turned over. Harold stopped halfway down the steps. He froze, like he had seen a ghost. "Harold?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "What is it?" He didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the far corner of the basement, and I followed his gaze. At first, I saw nothing. Just the old wooden boards, the laundry, the pipes. Then I noticed it, the faint outline of a section of the wall that had been hidden behind an extra layer of boards. Harold swallowed hard. You might want to come see this." My heartbeat jumped into my throat. Something in his tone made me want to step back, run, hide, anything. But I didn't. Instead, I followed him, slowly, every step echoing in that dark, heavy basement. What is it?" I whispered, though part of me already knew I didn't want to hear the answer. Harold crouched, running his hand over the wood. This wall wasn't here before. Or maybe it was. But they've sealed something behind it. Real tight. I've never seen anything like it. My chest tightened. Sealed. Who would do that? He glanced at me, pale and uncertain. I don't know. But whatever's behind this, it smells bad. Very bad. I felt a cold sweat break out across my forehead. Bad? How bad? My mind raced. The box. The photos. No, it had to be worse. Harold grabbed his tools. I don't usually pry into sealed walls, but if it's a water leak, we might need to remove it. I shook my head. No. Wait. We need to do this carefully. Slowly. His hand paused mid-motion. He looked up at me, eyes wide. Slowly won't help if there's whatever's back there. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my shaking hands. I have to know, Harold. I have to see it. He worked slowly, carefully removing one board at a time. As each plank came loose, the smell grew stronger. Rotten. Earthy. Something decayed. Something I couldn't identify. And then he stopped. I noticed his hand trembling slightly as he set the last board aside. He took a step back. I think you should stand back." I stepped closer anyway. My eyes narrowed as I tried to see. There it was. A hidden section of the basement, sealed with chains and a lock. It wasn't just a wall anymore. It was a door. A barrier. A secret fortress. My stomach dropped. My heart felt like it had stopped. "Chains?" I asked, voice barely audible. Harold nodded. "Yeah, and something inside. I can see movement." "Movement?" I froze. "Movement?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "What kind of movement?" He shook his head. "I don't know. Shadows. Things shifting. It's alive somehow." I stepped closer, ignoring the warning bell in my head. My instincts screamed at me to leave, to run, to call the police, but I couldn't. Not now. Not when I was this close. "Harold, unlock it. Please. I have to know." He hesitated. I saw the hesitation, the worry, the fear. I've been a plumber for 40 years. I've seen leaks, floods, fires, but I've never seen something like this. "You sure you want to know?" "Yes," I said, voice hard now. Determined. "I need to see it." With trembling hands, he worked at the lock. The chains fell away with a loud clang that echoed through the basement like a gunshot. The door creaked as it swung open. I stepped forward, my flashlight shaking in my hands. And then I saw them. Not my kids, not at first. Just objects. Stacks of papers. Old photos. Stolen goods. Documents. Bags. Boxes. Everything packed and hidden like some criminal stash. But then my eyes fell on the journals. Their handwriting. Familiar. Private. Intimate. And that's when I realized, this wasn't just secrets. This was a double life. Everything I thought I knew about my children, gone. Shattered. Harold's voice trembled. You might want to sit down. I couldn't. My legs refused to bend. Everything inside me froze, turned to ice, then fire all at once. They had been hiding this from me. They had been laughing, planning, living a life I wasn't allowed to know. And I had been blind. I could see it now, stolen goods from neighbors. Papers with notes about things I didn't want to imagine. Photos, some of them, disturbing. Not for the faint of heart. I turned to Harold, my hands shaking, tears welling up. They did all this. My own kids. He looked down, silent. Yes, I whispered to myself, voice raw and trembling. My own kids. A part of me wanted to scream. A part of me wanted to run. A part of me wanted to destroy it all. I didn't know then how far I would go. I didn't know how much blood, how many lies, how much betrayal lay ahead. All I knew was this. The world I thought I knew, my children, my home, everything was a lie. And the person who had been protecting me, the person I trusted the most, the plumber, was the only witness to the beginning of my discovery. Harold stepped back, voice low. Whatever's next, be careful. I've never seen anything like this, and I don't think you're ready for it. I swallowed hard, my eyes fixed on the hidden secrets behind that door. I'm ready, I whispered. Even if I wasn't. Because once you see the truth, there's no turning back. I stepped closer to the open door of the hidden basement section, my flashlight trembling in my hand. Every breath I took felt heavy, like I was inhaling betrayal itself. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might escape my chest. The first thing I saw were boxes. Rows of them. Labeled in their childish handwriting, neat, deliberate. Do not touch, one read. Mom will never find, another. I knelt down, pulling one open. My hands shook as I peeled back the tape. Inside, stolen goods. Jewelry. Electronics. Old wallets. Money. Items that belonged to neighbors, friends, even people from my church. My mind couldn't compute. My own children, my babies, had been living a life of theft and secrecy right under my nose. Then I saw the journals. Leather-bound, carefully hidden beneath the boxes. I picked one up, flipping the cover. The handwriting was unmistakably Alyssa's, meticulous, deliberate. The first page made me gasp. Mama will never understand. She can't. She'll never forgive what we're about to do. I dropped the journal, my hands clenching in fury. This wasn't just theft. This was planning. Malice. Something calculated. Harold, standing behind me, cleared his throat. This is more than just kids acting out. You might want to sit down for the rest of it. I didn't. I couldn't. My legs wouldn't let me. I picked up another box, this one heavier. My hands went numb as I opened it. Photos. Photos of people I didn't recognize at first. Then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The images weren't innocent snapshots. Some were taken secretly, cameras hidden, angles odd, faces distorted. Some showed things I didn't want to imagine. My children weren't just stealing things, they were living a hidden life I had no control over. Harold, my voice shook. They did all this. Right here. Under my house. He nodded slowly. I've seen a lot in my years, Miss Parker. But I've never seen something so deliberate, so dark. And he was right. The worst was yet to come. I noticed a small metal box at the back of the section, taped shut, chained. My hands trembled as I unfastened it, and the moment I opened it, my stomach dropped. Inside were letters, journal entries, and photographs, but these were personal. Very personal. About me. About my life, my mistakes, my fears, my heart. They had been studying me. Watching me. Writing about me. Planning how to manipulate, humiliate, even destroy me. I staggered back, hand over my mouth, as realization hit. My children had not only hidden stolen goods. They had been plotting against me. My own mother. Harold stepped back, looking at me with a mix of horror and pity. I don't know how to tell you this, but they weren't just hiding stuff. They were recording, planning, like a game. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. My tears started streaming down my face, hot, furious, raw. And then I saw it. A notebook with Caleb's handwriting, shoved in the corner of the safe. I picked it up and my eyes widened as I read the first line. Mom is weak. Mom loves us too much. She'll never see it coming. I couldn't breathe. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound ever could. These were my children, the people I had poured my life into, loved with every ounce of my being, and they had been laughing at me. Planning to destroy me. Mocking my trust. I sank to the floor, sobbing. My tears mixed with fury. Rage bubbled up inside me like molten lava, scorching everything in its path. Harold cleared his throat gently. They've been doing this a long time. I saw the journals. The boxes. And I think they're smart enough to cover everything if we don't move fast. I wiped my tears, voice shaking but hard. Smart. Harold, they're evil. They're monsters pretending to be children. My blood, my flesh, plotting against me. He nodded silently. I don't blame you if you decide to do something. Something? Oh yes. I was going to do something. As I dug deeper into the hidden section, I found a collection of letters. Some addressed to friends of mine, detailing lies they planned to spread. Others were lists of people they were going to manipulate, cheat, and deceive. It was chilling. Calculated. Precise. I ran my fingers over one note. Mom will never know until it's too late. The last line burned into me like fire. One day, she will wish she never had us. And that's when I realized, they weren't just hiding stuff, they were preparing for the day they would destroy me. I looked around the basement, every shadow, every box, every scrap of paper screamed betrayal. I thought of every night I stayed up worrying about them. Every sacrifice I had made. Every tear I shed over scraped knees and heartbreaks. Every time I forgave them for lies, for bad grades, for disrespect, all of it was a lie to them. They weren't children. They were enemies. And I knew in that moment that my role as a mother had ended. Harold said quietly, I don't know what you're going to do now, but whoever did this, they have no idea you're seeing it all. I looked at him, eyes blazing, wet from tears, voice trembling with fury. No, they don't. And they're about to find out exactly who they're dealing with. I took a deep breath and started planning. I would record everything. I would expose them. I would make them pay. Not morally. Not legally first. But personally. Because after the betrayal I just witnessed, the trust they destroyed, the manipulation, the deceit, revenge wasn't just an option. It was inevitable. I stood there in that basement, surrounded by the evidence of their double lives, their plotting, their lies, and I whispered to the darkness. You thought I didn't know. You thought I was blind. You thought I would never see. But I see. And this ends tonight. Harold looked at me, eyes wide. Yes, Harold, I said, my voice low, icy, determined. It ends tonight. And for the first time since the leak, the basement didn't feel suffocating. It felt right. Because now, I was ready. I couldn't wait another minute. Not another second. I had spent days watching, listening, piecing together every scrap of evidence my children had left behind. And now, with the hidden basement secrets exposed, I knew it was time. It was time to confront them. I started with Caleb. He was lounging in the living room, phone in hand, earbuds in, pretending to ignore me. I stepped inside, my shadow falling over him. Caleb, I said, voice steady, we need to talk. Now. He pulled his earbuds out slowly, an almost imperceptible smirk on his face. You finally figured it out, he said casually. About what? I dropped the leather-bound journals and the photos onto the coffee table. The thud echoed like a warning. This, I said, voice shaking with fury and disbelief. Everything. The journals. The photos. The basement. Your lies. All of it. I know. For a second, he froze. Then he laughed. A low, cold laugh. Wow, Mom, you really do believe you're in charge, don't you? I felt my chest tighten. That laugh. It wasn't the laugh of a child. It was deliberate. Mocking. Cruel. Then Alyssa stepped in. She had been standing in the hallway, silent, watching. Her grin was chilling. Oh, Mom, she said, tilting her head. You really shouldn't have gone down there. I took a step toward them. My hands shook, but my voice was strong. How long, How long have you been hiding this from me? How long have you been planning to betray your own mother? Caleb shrugged, leaning back into the couch, eyes gleaming. Planning? Mom, you mean protecting ourselves. You've always been clueless. Alyssa walked closer, circling me like a predator. We knew you'd never believe it, Mama. We had to be careful. You love us too much. That's your weakness. Every word they spoke cut me. Deep. Sharp. I felt my anger rising, but I forced myself to breathe. This was no longer sorrow. No longer confusion. It was horror. Horror mixed with rage. I pulled the journals and photos closer, spreading them across the living room floor. See this? Look at it. I shouted, pointing to Caleb's notes detailing lies about neighbors, manipulations, and plans to deceive everyone, even me. Look at these photos, Alyssa. These letters, these stolen things, your lists. You've been living a life of deceit for years, hiding it from the person who raised you. They looked at each other, then at me, eyes cold, calculating. You don't understand, Mom, Caleb said slowly. We've been doing what we had to. You wouldn't get it. I felt a scream rising in my throat. I raised you. I shouted, tears blinding me. I gave you everything. And this is what I get. You laugh at me. You mock me. You use me. Alyssa chuckled softly, but it didn't reach her eyes. Clues were everywhere, Mom, she said. We just made sure you never saw the whole picture. Clever, right? Clever. Mocking. Betrayal. My hands clenched into fists. My teeth ground together. And then I realized, this wasn't just a phase. This wasn't rebellion. This wasn't teenage anger. This was calculated. And the thought of it made my blood boil. I had to get closer. I had to make them see me, not just the mother they thought they could manipulate. I stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. Look at me. I demanded. They turned, expressions guarded now. You're not children anymore, I said, voice shaking with fury. You're strangers. Strangers I raised. And you've been planning to destroy me for years. Caleb smirked, leaning forward. Destroy you? Mom, you're so dramatic. We're just living our lives. Alyssa crossed her arms, her grin almost sadistic. Yeah, Mom. You've been asleep the whole time. This is our reality. Welcome to it. I sank to the floor, shaking, tears streaming. I had imagined confrontation hundreds of times in my head, but none of it prepared me for this. I felt the full weight of betrayal. Years of love, patience, and sacrifice, trampled, mocked, and twisted into a weapon against me. Do you have any idea what it feels like, I whispered, to see your own blood laughing at your pain? To see the people you love planning your suffering? They looked at me, faces impassive. And then I saw it. The faint flicker of something. Guilt? No, not guilt. Fear. Recognition. Maybe. But it was tiny, almost imperceptible, and I clung to it like fire. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I knew I couldn't let this moment pass without action. Tears ran down my cheeks, but I straightened, voice steady now. You've laughed at me for too long, I said, tone low, deliberate. You've used my love against me. You've made me blind. But I'm done being blind. Caleb's smirk faltered for just a fraction of a second. Alyssa's grin tightened. That's when I saw it. Their fear. Subtle, almost invisible, but real. And it fueled the fire inside me. I stood taller. I would not cry anymore. I would not beg. I would take action. The next words came out of me almost before I thought them. You think you're in control. You think you can manipulate everyone around you. But I've been patient. I've been watching. I know everything now. Their eyes widened slightly. Caleb took a step back. Alyssa's arms dropped for a moment. From now on, I continued, voice growing stronger, icy with determination, you will learn exactly what it feels like to be powerless. You will see how it feels to be exposed. You will understand, in a way you never thought possible, the consequences of what you've done. They stared at me. Silence filled the room. I felt the shift. The balance had changed. And I realized then, the horror they'd inflicted on me wasn't going to end with tears. It was about to be returned. I reached for my phone and quietly recorded their reactions. Every smirk, every attempt at bravado, every flicker of fear, all captured. Because this was only the beginning. The basement, the hidden section, the journals, all of it was now evidence, and the game had just begun. I whispered under my breath, voice cold but controlled. You thought you could scare me. You thought I'd crumble. But tonight, the nightmare is about to be yours. And in that moment, I felt it. The first stirrings of pure, unrelenting revenge. Not for justice. Not for punishment. But for survival. For every tear. For every lie. For every moment they had made me doubt my own instincts. For everything they had taken from me. And the basement, once a symbol of secrecy and terror, was about to become their reckoning. The air in the house felt different that night. Heavier. Thicker. Like it had been waiting, just waiting, for me to make a move. I couldn't sleep. My mind raced. Every whispered word, every laugh, every journal entry I had uncovered replayed like a loop in my head. My children, my own flesh and blood, were capable of things I could barely name. Things I had never imagined. And I realized, in that suffocating dark, that I had a choice. I could do nothing. Pretend it didn't exist. Keep crying, keep hoping for change. Or I could take matters into my own hands. I started small. I watched them. Their routines, their habits, the way they moved through the house. I noticed when they texted, where they hid phones, what words they used. I memorized every little detail, knowing that one slip, one moment of carelessness, could give me the leverage I needed. I set up a small camera in the living room, discreet. I recorded their reactions when I mentioned the basement. I left fake notes, hints that I was suspicious, watching. I needed them to let their guard down, just enough. That night, I decided to escalate. I prepared the basement. Not to harm them physically, yet. But to corner them. To make them see that the tables had turned. I moved furniture, cleared a path, and ensured I had control over the space. Flashlights, phones, all charged and ready. I even marked certain triggers, items that would draw their attention, that I knew they would investigate, because I had spent days studying their patterns. And all the while, my heart pounded. Rage. Fear. Excitement. Every emotion collided in me, creating a storm I couldn't contain. When the time came, I called them down. Dinner's over. Time for a little family talk, I said, voice calm but deliberate. They looked at me, suspicion in their eyes, but I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. Caleb raised an eyebrow. Family talk. Now. Mama, it's late. Exactly, I said, locking eyes with him. Late. Quiet. No distractions. Come on. Alyssa hesitated, but curiosity, her fatal flaw, pulled her toward me. I led them to the basement, every step echoing in the hall, each footfall a drumbeat of tension. They didn't know what I had planned. They didn't suspect that the mother they thought was naive, blind, and soft, had turned. Once we reached the basement, I turned to them, voice low and steady. You've had years to hide. Years to manipulate, deceive, and plan. But now, it's my turn. Caleb laughed nervously, trying to regain control. Mama, you're being dramatic. This isn't funny. Alyssa smirked, stepping closer. Yeah, Mom. What are you going to do? I held up the journals, the photos, the evidence I had meticulously gathered. This, I said. Everything you thought you could hide from me. Everything you planned in secret. I have it all. Their faces shifted, first disbelief, then anger, then a flicker of fear. I had planned the next step carefully. I recorded everything. Their confessions, their mocking comments, every attempt at intimidation, all captured, all stored. I made sure to stay calm, even as my chest burned with fury. You think you're clever, I said, but you're reckless. And reckless people make mistakes. Caleb tried to snatch the phone from me. I moved back just fast enough. Alyssa lunged for the journals, but I had anticipated her move. My hands met hers, firm and unyielding. Don't, I warned. Not tonight. Not when you've already lost control. I played their game against them. I left trails, subtle hints that I was onto more than they realized. I pretended ignorance, dropped pieces of evidence in strategic spots, whispered accusations just loud enough for them to hear. They moved like predators in the dark, but I was hunting smarter. And then, I set the trap. I lured them into a specific corner of the basement, the one that led to the hidden section. The very spot where they had hidden their secrets for years. I had prepared everything meticulously, the chains I could close behind them, the cameras positioned, their reactions ready to be captured. All that was left was patience. That night, as I guided them, I felt a calm settle over me. The rage was still there, simmering like a pot about to boil over. But the fear they had instilled in me, gone. I was in control. Every glance they gave me, every hesitation, every flicker of doubt in their eyes, I absorbed it. I let it fuel me. I whispered to myself, you thought you could break me. You thought I would cry, beg, and forgive. You were wrong. And for the first time in months, I felt powerful. Not as a mother. Not as a victim. As a force they had never anticipated. By the time they reached the marked spot, their bravado was cracking. I paused. And in that pause, I let them feel the shift. I let them realize they were no longer in control. You've hidden your sins here, I said softly, almost kindly. Now you'll face them. You'll feel the weight of what you've done. Their laughter faltered. Caleb's smirk wavered. Alyssa's grin dropped just enough. And then I let it happen. I closed the chains. Locked the hidden basement section behind them. The moment their eyes met mine, shock, panic, rage, I knew I had won the first round. I stayed calm. Deliberate. Collected. You thought you could manipulate me, control me, use me. But tonight, the game changes. Every lie you've told, every secret you've kept, it ends now. I watched them scramble, their fear raw and undeniable. And in that fear, I saw something I hadn't felt in months, satisfaction. Not justice. Not forgiveness. Revenge. Pure, unfiltered, long-awaited revenge. And as I recorded their reactions, the basement filled with the echoes of their panic, their anger, their disbelief, I knew this was only the beginning. The night was mine. The plan was mine. And the reckoning had just begun. The storm that night mirrored what was about to unfold inside my house. Rain lashed against the windows, wind rattling the shutters, and somewhere deep in my chest, a storm of my own was brewing. The basement, the very place that had hidden their secrets for years, was now the stage for their reckoning. I had prepared everything meticulously, the cameras, the chains, the evidence, every detail calculated. This wasn't chaos. This was precision. This was the moment I claimed control over the world they had tried to manipulate. I called them down once more. Come, I said, voice steady, deliberate. It's time. Caleb glanced at Alyssa, a flicker of doubt crossing his face for the first time. Alyssa's usual grin was gone. Something in her eyes, unease, maybe fear, betrayed them. They followed me silently, Footsteps tentative, hearts racing. I could feel it. As we reached the basement, I switched on the main light. It flickered, casting long shadows that danced on the walls. The storm outside added its own rhythm, thunder shaking the house, rain hammering the windows. The world outside mirrored the chaos inside. "Mom, what's going on?" Caleb asked, voice slightly shaky, his bravado fading. "You know what's going on," I said softly, almost calmly. "You know exactly why we're here." I guided them toward the hidden section of the basement, the very space that had harbored years of deception, manipulation, and crime. "Look around," I said. "This is your world. The one you built in secret. The one you thought I'd never see." They stared at the open boxes, the journals, the stolen items, the letters. Their faces paled, eyes widening. And that's when the panic began. Alyssa took a step back. "Mom, what are you doing?" I smiled faintly, a cold, deliberate smile. "I'm giving you a taste of what it feels like to be powerless. To be watched. To be exposed." Caleb laughed nervously. "Mom, you can't." I cut him off sharply. "Watch me." I moved toward the chains, closing them behind them with deliberate, echoing clinks. The sound was deafening in the tense silence. Their faces twisted in disbelief. Panic. Anger. Confusion. You can't." Alyssa shouted, pounding on the chains. "Let us out." I shook my head, voice firm. "Not yet. Not until you understand." I held up the journals, letters, and photographs. "You've hidden your lives from me. You've lied, stolen, manipulated, and planned against the very person who loved you most. And for what?" They looked at each other, their bravado shattered. The smirks were gone. Even Caleb's usual cold confidence had cracks of fear. "You thought I wouldn't see," I continued, tears of rage and heartbreak streaming down my face. "You thought I would stay blind. You thought I would forgive you without consequence." Alyssa's voice was trembling now. "Mom, you're overreacting. This is..." I slammed a hand down on a box, scattering papers everywhere. "Overreacting?" I shouted. "You've destroyed everything. My trust. My love. My life. And now, it's time you understand what it feels like to be cornered, helpless, afraid." Caleb tried to lunge at me, to grab a journal. I sidestepped, calm, deliberate, anticipating every move. "You move, you lose," I said, voice icy. "You're not in control anymore." For the first time in years, I saw true fear in their eyes. Not the fake, fleeting fear I had tried to instill as a parent. Real fear. And I let it sink in. I walked slowly around them, circling like a predator, letting them feel the weight of their own betrayal. "You've been planning against me for years. Hiding behind lies, manipulating everyone around you. But now, the hunter has become the hunted." Alyssa swallowed hard, eyes darting around the basement. "Mom, you're crazy." "No," I said softly. "I'm awake. Fully awake. And I see everything." I reached into a box and pulled out a notebook filled with their plans, lists of stolen items, strategies to manipulate friends, even notes about me. "You thought I wouldn't see this?" I whispered. "You thought your little games could destroy me?" They were shaking now. The smirk on Caleb's face had vanished entirely. The storm outside intensified. Thunder rattled the basement, the windows vibrating violently. I moved closer, voice dropping to a low, dangerous whisper. "You've had your fun," I said. "You've lived in lies, thinking you were untouchable. But the truth has a way of catching up. And tonight, you meet it head on." Alyssa stepped back, voice quivering. "Mom, please." I raised a hand, not to strike, but to command. "Silence. Listen. Watch. Understand." I could feel the adrenaline pumping through me. Rage. Betrayal. Power. Every emotion fused into one unshakable determination. I began revealing everything I had discovered, their stolen goods, journals, secret letters, plans. Every lie, every deception, every plot was laid bare before them. "You've been living a double life," I said, voice cutting through the storm. And now, there's no hiding, no denying. The truth is here. All of it. Your entire hidden world. Right in front of you. Caleb's breathing grew ragged. Alyssa's hands shook. I watched them crumble, piece by piece, under the weight of their own deceit. I waited, letting the panic simmer. Then, finally, I spoke the words I had rehearsed silently in my mind for days. Do you understand now? The games are over. The secrets are gone. And the power is mine. Their eyes met mine, wide with disbelief. You, Caleb whispered, voice trembling. You, how? I see everything, I said. I've seen it all. And you will pay attention this time. You will listen. You will understand that your reign of manipulation ends tonight. For a long moment, silence reigned. Thunder crashed. Rain hammered the windows. And in that basement, surrounded by the remnants of their hidden lives, the roles had reversed. I was no longer the mother who had been blind, manipulated, and mocked. I was a force they had never anticipated. And they knew it. Alyssa whispered, voice broken, Mom, what are you going to do? I leaned close, voice soft but venomous. What I should have done years ago. What I should have done the first time you lied, the first time you deceived me. Tonight, you face everything. All of it. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. The storm raged on outside, mirroring the tempest inside me. And in that basement, the reckoning had begun. For the first time in years, I didn't feel sorrow. I didn't feel fear. I felt power. The same power they had stolen from me had returned. And it was theirs to feel now. The first phase of my revenge had begun. But I knew, deep down, this was only the beginning. They had underestimated me for too long. Tonight, they would learn the true cost of betrayal. The basement, once a symbol of secrecy and deceit, had become their cage. And I, finally, fully, had the upper hand. The storm had passed, leaving the world outside dripping and quiet, but inside me, the storm was still raging. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline that had carried me through the night. I had done what I never imagined I could, taken control of the chaos my children had created and turned it against them. I had called the authorities anonymously, leaving just enough breadcrumbs for them to find everything without giving away my identity. I knew they would come, eventually, and I waited, watching from the shadows, my pulse in sync with every passing siren outside. The first knock came just as the clock struck 6 in the morning. My children were still in the basement, the same place that had hidden their secrets for years. I hadn't let them go yet. I wanted them to be present when the walls of lies they had built around themselves finally crumbled. Police. Lawrence County Sheriff's Department. Open up, a firm voice called. Alyssa's voice quavered from inside, muffled by the chains I had left in place. Mama, what did you do? Caleb's low growl of panic and anger made the pit of my stomach twist. The metal chains rattled as the officers worked, and in that moment, I saw something I hadn't seen in years. My children, truly powerless. The officers moved efficiently, professionals in every sense. Flashlights cut through the dim basement, badges gleaming in the faint light. One officer stepped forward, his tone calm but commanding. Step outside, hands where we can see them. Caleb's chest heaved, defiance cracking under pressure. You set us up, Mom. You're quiet, I snapped, my voice cold and precise. I wasn't the same woman who had coddled, forgiven, and overlooked their early mischief. The mother they had manipulated was gone. This was a reckoning. Alyssa's trembling fingers clutched the edge of a journal. You don't understand, Mama. I understand more than you ever imagined, I said, holding their journals and the stolen items I had meticulously catalogued. I understand the years of lies, the manipulations, the betrayals. And tonight, you face the consequences. The officers began reading them their rights, their voices blending with the distant rumble of the storm's lingering echoes. Caleb's face twisted, disbelief and anger mingling with the first true taste of fear. Alyssa's usual smirk was gone, replaced by a fragile, shaking mask. You could have come to me, I whispered, watching them carefully as they were handcuffed. But you chose to deceive. You chose to destroy. You chose a life that pushed me out. Now, you live with the aftermath. The cruiser doors slammed, a punctuation mark of finality. The lights of the vehicles reflected in the wet driveway as they were led away, their protests fading into the early morning silence. I stepped outside, letting the damp cold wash over me, letting the rain mingle with my tears. It was satisfying, in a strange, hollow way. Not joyous, not euphoric, too much pain had built up for that. But a sense of control had returned. I had acted. I had not waited for mercy or hope. I had made justice happen. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, whispering condolences and astonishment. Mr. Flores from next door, a quiet man who had always brought casseroles after hard times, watched me with cautious concern. His eyes asked the question I had been asking myself: how did it come to this? I didn't answer. There was nothing to explain. The storm inside me, the storm that had birthed this night of reckoning, needed no words. The detective stayed behind, calm and professional. He asked questions, took my statements, examined the evidence I had prepared. Everything, journals, photos, recordings, was collected, catalogued, and bagged. I watched each movement carefully, making sure nothing was lost, nothing misinterpreted. You did the right thing bringing this to light, the detective said gently. I repeated the words to myself, almost to test them. Right thing. It didn't feel like the right thing. It felt like survival. It felt like reclaiming a part of myself that my children had tried to erase. Inside, the house was quiet now, empty and almost too large for just me. The rooms carried the echoes of years of lies and laughter, of secrets and betrayals. The basement, once a den of darkness and deceit, was now a space emptied of its power, stripped bare by truth and exposure. I closed the basement door, locking it behind me. For now, it was over. The immediate threat, the immediate betrayal, had been addressed. My children were facing consequences, the law moving to enforce accountability. But the ache inside me remained, a reminder that no procedure, no officer, no police report could ever fully repair the wound their betrayal had carved. And yet, as I stood at the window, looking at the wet driveway, at the cruiser disappearing into the distance, I felt a measure of peace. Not joy. Not forgiveness. But a sense that the scales had shifted, even if just slightly. Caleb's voice echoed faintly in my memory, angry and accusing. You ruined us. I let it sit, heavy and unanswered. The words were theirs to carry now. They had chosen their path. They had chosen to hurt, to hide, to manipulate. And now, they were learning what justice looked like from a mother who had finally stopped being blind. I turned away from the window, letting the house's silence settle over me. The storm had cleansed the outside world, but the inside was still mine to navigate. I would live in the aftermath, carrying the memory of betrayal, the taste of revenge, and the awareness that power, once taken back, was a double-edged sword. Sometimes justice doesn't feel like closure. Sometimes it's just the act of standing and watching what should have been done finally take shape. And in that realization, I understood something essential. Revenge wasn't about satisfaction. It was about balance. It was about ensuring that those who had broken trust felt the weight of what they had done. I poured myself a cup of coffee, dark and strong, and let the silence wash over me. The house was mine again. Quiet, heavy, scarred, but mine. The children had been removed, the police had done their work, and yet a subtle truth remained. This was only the beginning of understanding what it truly meant to face consequences. I let out a slow, deliberate breath. My hands were steady. My mind was sharp. My heart, though bruised, felt unbroken. And for the first time in months, I allowed myself a thought that had been dangerous to even consider. I am free. And I am ready. The house was quiet. Almost too quiet. I wandered from room to room, each corner filled with echoes of memories and ghosts of what had been. The basement, the epicenter of their lies, now felt like a tomb, a place where the weight of truth had settled in thick layers. The silence was heavy, almost oppressive, but it was mine. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat by the window, staring out at the rain-slicked street. The cruiser that had carried my children away was gone, the evidence bagged, the police reports filed. Everything that could be handled by law had been handled. But inside me, the story was far from over. I thought I would feel relief, triumph, closure. Instead, I felt something colder. It wasn't satisfaction. It wasn't happiness. It was a raw, empty sort of clarity. The betrayal had stripped me bare, leaving no illusions behind. And in that emptiness, I understood something frightening. Revenge isn't a single act. It's a state of mind. It's knowing the truth, facing it, and acting in a way that leaves no doubt who is in control. I traced my fingers over the journals I had kept, the ones I had discovered hidden in the basement, flipping through the pages they'd written. Words I had once dismissed as childish mischief now struck like knives. Plans, secrets, threats, manipulations. They had lived double lives, and I had been blind to the very people I had trusted most. I thought of Caleb and Alyssa, the children I had raised, nurtured, and loved unconditionally. The same children who had laughed at my trust, mocked my concern, and treated my love like a tool for their games. I wondered if they even understood how fragile that trust had been, how easily it could be shattered by someone who had truly seen them. I wandered into the basement one last time. The door creaked as I opened it, the familiar smell of damp wood and dust greeting me. I traced the wall where their secrets had been hidden, the boards I had pried apart, the chains that had rattled under their weight. Everything was gone now, boxes cleared, items confiscated. But the memory remained, almost tactile in its intensity. The power had shifted. That basement, once a vault of deceit, had become a monument to their reckoning. And I, the mother they had underestimated for so long, was standing at the center of it. I poured myself another cup of coffee, the bitter warmth grounding me. The silence of the house pressed against my ears, and for the first time, I allowed myself to think about what came next. Would I feel lighter? Free? Perhaps in some ways, yes. But the truth had a way of lingering, settling in the marrow of your bones. The betrayal had cut deep, and even now, the scars it left would not fade. They would ache in quiet moments, in empty rooms, in fleeting glimpses of my reflection in the dark glass. I thought about revenge. About how it had tasted, raw and unfiltered, as I watched my children's fear, their confusion, their anger. That moment, locking the basement door, exposing their lies, had been mine. Pure, unadulterated power. And yet, the thrill was fleeting. The hollow that followed was far heavier than the satisfaction of seeing them caught. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the chair across from me, imagining them sitting there as they had so often, plotting, laughing, hiding, deceiving. I could almost hear their voices, the echoes of lies and half-truths. I could almost feel the weight of all the years I had spent blind, hoping for the innocence that had never been there. And then I smiled, faint and chilling. Not with warmth. Not with joy. But with the certainty that came from knowing the truth, from facing it, and from taking control. Sometimes revenge is all you get. Sometimes justice is not clean or comforting. Sometimes the only peace is in knowing you have turned the tables, that the people who hurt you have felt the weight of their actions. I thought of the future, quiet mornings, empty rooms, the absence of their laughter, their whispers, their secrets. I would fill the silence with my own rhythm, my own voice, my own rules. I would not pretend to be naive again. I would not give them the power to manipulate or wound me ever again. The house was mine again, and in that ownership, in that reclaiming of space and self, I felt a grim satisfaction. It was not happiness. It was not light. It was something darker, something stronger. It was the price of knowing the truth. And sometimes, knowing is all you need. I walked through the living room, touching the surfaces they had once left fingerprints on, the walls that had held their mischief and laughter. Everything seemed smaller now, quieter. Everything had shifted. I thought of the neighbors peeking through their windows, of Mr. Flores's silent concern, of the officers who had quietly respected my process. Their lives would continue, theirs would resume, but mine had changed irrevocably. And I would carry that change like a shield, a weapon, and a memory. I paused at the front window, looking out at the street where the cruiser had disappeared. The reflection staring back at me was not just mine, it was a mixture of pain, rage, clarity, and power. I traced the line of my jaw, the furrow of my brow, and whispered into the quiet house, "This is the cost. The price of knowing the truth. And sometimes, it's the only peace you ever get." The rain began to fall again, soft and insistent. I let it wash over the windows, a reminder that the world moves on, even after storms, even after betrayal. But I stayed, rooted in the quiet aftermath, tasting the bitter satisfaction of revenge, knowing that I had reclaimed what was mine, and they had finally learned what it felt like to be powerless. The house was mine. The truth was mine. And the reckoning, at last, had been delivered. Somewhere in the distance, a crow cawed. I listened. And I smiled faintly. The night had been long. The storm had passed. But the world would never forget the mother who had finally seen clearly, acted decisively, and turned betrayal into justice, her justice. And as the last drops of rain slid down the windows, I knew deep down that the story was far from over. Not for them. Not for me. I had paid the price of knowing the truth. And the only thing left was the quiet, dark satisfaction that comes from a mother finally taking back everything she had lost.